This will be the last tier list we do before we are able to place my boy Endeavor and figure out how good he is going to be, because he comes out very, very soon with Season 2. So for this week, the tier list, looking at it, we are going to make a couple of changes since the buffs and nerfs that came through last time. And the very first thing I want to talk about before I make any changes, though, is Sue. There are definitely going to be people of the opinion that Sue has been nerfed into the ground. And then you have people like me who are of the opinion that nothing has really changed if you get Sue's alpha up to level 4, because once you get her alpha up to level 4, it's like nothing ever changed. And an endgame Sue is still going to be really annoying and really hard to play with, like against. So I think for that reason, I'm going to keep Sue where she is. I do think Sue is still definitely S tier, but I will say it could be up for debate whether Sue is still technically better than Todoroki or Deku, because early game, she's probably not as good as Todoroki and Deku. But I still feel like having 2 shots isn't all that limiting if you know how to use her kit, because she has so much mobility just in her jump alone, and then also in using her melee. Her melee lets her dash an extra couple feet. So like, I don't know. I feel like and they also changed the cooldown time on her alpha as well and made it shorter, so her tongue comes up quicker when she's in those first 3 levels of her alpha before you get it leveled up to level 4 where you get that extra charge. So I don't feel like a whole lot changed with Sue, and I feel like she is still deserving of the S spot. But I just wanted to address that because I know there's definitely people who feel like Sue should not be at the top anymore, and then there's also people who feel like she's still as broken as ever, and I'm kind of in the middle, and I think she's alright where she is at right now. And I do think personally that she is better than Todoroki and Deku. In terms of mobility, Todoroki is still better than Deku, so we're going to keep him there because they changed the timer on Deku's Gamma skill, which, like, I don't know why. I don't feel like it was really necessary, but they did that. And speaking of unnecessary buffs, another unnecessary buff that they did was to Toga's beta skill, where she runs around with the knives. That skill was already pretty good, but doing the buff that they did made it really insane. And since playing against a couple more Togas in game, I can say the amount of damage that she does is nuts, and the fact that she's able to transform and all that. So I feel like she definitely has to be above Compress. So we're going to put her up here above Compress. Now, I don't think she's better than Ida. Right now, Ida's kind of running rampant. I think Idas are really, like, we're starting to get more of them, and they're starting to realize how good Ida actually is. He's really, really good. However, I do think if Ochako's kit works right, which it's about to, because they said they are going to fix it at the beginning of Season 2 here, I do think she is the top spot for a speed character in A tier above Ida. Sue is still the top of the top, but then we have Ochako, and then I think All Might is still above Ida, because All Might just has so much versatility in the fact that he can jump away, he can put people on his back to revive him. I almost said backs because I was thinking both these characters can do that, right? But then All Might also has a decent medium range, whereas Ida doesn't really have a great medium range. And then All Might is also able to deflect projectiles. That's the big thing that keeps him above Ida. So I feel like these 3 in that order is fair. Having Toga right below Ida is now fair because Toga outputs like a ton of damage, but I still think speed characters are just kind of the meta besides range characters. So speed and range characters are the meta, right? And so that puts Toga right here as a base kit. Now, I will say this again, Toga could technically be top of S tier if she transforms into any one of these characters above her. Because then she is playing one of the best characters in the game, making her an insanely good character. So overall, if Toga is played right, I would say S tier, but for a base kit perspective, she is definitely A tier. From there, I do want to move around Cementos and Compress. This one's kind of tough. They could both, like, they're about on par. The reason I'm putting Cementos above Compress, though, is because I feel like Cementos has more damage skills, but at the same time, Cementos has a really hard time finishing people because he just knocks them around all over if you're not actually doing a finisher. And sometimes it's not always easy to do your finishers in ranked, whereas on the other hand, Compress just throws trucks on people and can finish people really easily, but that is Compress's only real source of damage besides his reflection. But most people, if they know what they're doing, and now that people have been playing a little bit more, aren't just going to shoot blindly at a Compress holding up a giant shield, and because it's going to hit them back for the full amount of damage, you know? So I feel like now that people are wising up to Compress, we have to move him down a little bit. Compress still has insane mobility when it comes to escapability and stuff like that, but Cementos also has a lot of mobility in the fact, vertical mobility, in the fact that he can go up and create towers for himself and do damage at the same time as doing those towers. If you didn't know, Compress's escape also does damage when he creates the little cloud around him, but it's not as big of a hitbox as Cementos. And so in terms of like damage and mobility, I feel like Cementos is a little bit better. And then my last point is that Cementos has the revive, which is super nice, whereas Compress can only put people in his pocket. And I think they heal over time a little bit, which is okay, but it's not... The revive is going to be like infinitely better, right? So for that reason, Cementos moving up above Compress. And then from there, I think pretty much everything else is honestly going to stay the same. We have Kirishima and Kaminari below Compress because they don't have as much range. Kirishima is one of the strongest damage dealers in the game, but if he can't get close to these top tier characters in S tier, he's never going to be able to win the game, right? But if he can, then he can definitely win. Same thing with Kaminari, same thing with Shigaraki. If any of these three characters get close enough to you or get you into like, if Shigaraki gets you into close quarters and he puts a Q down, you know, these characters can definitely win. A lot of that just depends on where the ring pulls, but when you look at these other characters above, they're going to be good and more versatile pretty much anywhere. So for that reason, we're keeping these characters towards the bottom of A tier. For Mount Lady, she is good in her base form. Her giant form is getting rougher to play as because people now know to just focus her down when she transforms, and you can do a lot of damage to her pretty easily. Like, you'll literally, if you transform as Mount Lady and there's 3 teams left, the other 2 teams that are not yours will work together to take you down. Okay, so like everybody knows to just focus Mount Lady now, and it's kind of a pain to fully utilize that part of her kit. Additionally, Isawa exists now, who can stop Mount Lady from doing anything while she's a giant, and it just makes her a giant billboard. Granted, you can transform back, but in that time that you're transforming back down to your small size, you can still get hit a lot. So that is why Mount Lady is going to go down here at the bottom of A tier. I will say Mount Lady has more maneuverability than Shigaraki, and she has about the same as Kaminari and Kirishima. But in terms of damage, she's not going to be doing as much damage as these 3 characters above. Shigaraki, Kaminari, and Kirishima can all do massive like AoE damage. She does AoE damage with her stomp, but I wouldn't say it's nearly as good as these 3 characters above her. So we're going to leave her at the bottom of A tier. The rest of B tier and C tier all staying the same. This part is actually fairly quick, and I'll kind of briefly go over these characters and why they're down here. She got nerfed. Her shield isn't as good as it used to be. Dabi only has 1 real attack skill besides his Ring of Fire and his traps, which makes him really hard to use. And if you run out of that alpha primary fire, you're just kind of standing there until it recharges, which can suck. Even later in the game, it feels like it kind of is rough as a Dabi main. So I mean, maybe give him an extra charge on his alpha or make his alpha recharge a little bit faster, and I feel like Dabi would be in a much stronger place overall. Not to say that the rest of his kit is bad, but it's just not damage oriented. It's more defensive oriented, and you got to hope that people walk into your traps or just stand in your Ring of Fire around you. The Ring of Fire around you, of course, is meant more for deflecting projectiles. So, and then his special action is still really good. Her special action is still really good. You know, the grab bag is amazing. His ability to get people off him when they're trying to down him is very helpful in those scenarios where he does get down first and your teammates are still alive so they can help you. And then below that, we are keeping these the same, Ibura, then Kendo. I had Kendo down in C tier for a long time. I do think Kendo is actually a viable pick when it comes to playing a character who's decent, but if you're ever going to take a character into ranked, I probably wouldn't take Kendo into ranked unless you're going to play her badly. And when I say that, I mean like Kendo is meant to be played as a support character who helps the team and protects the team, but in order to rank up right now with the way ranked works, you need to do damage. So if you're doing a bunch of damage as Kendo, then you're probably not playing her correctly. And so yeah, that's why she's at the bottom of B tier, just because like her kit doesn't work well for the current ranked, and she's a very supportive character who just doesn't have a ton of damage and maneuverability, and she can't really help herself a lot. She's very just too team oriented, but if you have a good team, you can Kendo can be a very good character. No character on this tier list is bad, just a preference. Ibura, on the other hand, is staying above Kendo because Ibura can somewhat defend herself with her wide-ranging AoE attack, with her focused attack that goes all the way across the map with her vines, and then also she has a capture that ignores guard points and does true damage. Her biggest disadvantage is the fact that she has like no mobility, but she does have a revive. Okay, I actually really like that revive, but in terms of just like raw how good is her kit, I don't know. I like these three are all kind of on par. I don't know if I would necessarily put Yayorozu or Dabi above Ibra. This one's kind of a tough one. So when I think of these three, I think of them all kind of as on par. But if I have to put her somewhere, I'm going to put her below Dabi and below Yayorozu, because I feel like Yayorozu and Dabi just have more versatility in more parts of the map, whereas Ibra is going to be having a harder time killing opponents and capturing opponents, like with her Gamma in certain parts of the map. So if you're in Typhoon Zone, you capture someone with Ibra's Gamma and you're behind a wall, you can finish them. But if you're out on the bridge as Ibra, you capture somebody with her Gamma and you're doing damage to them, your team can help you focus them. But if their team comes to free them, you can't even make use of that skill. So it's basically like Ibra only has 2 skills part of the time, depending on which part of the map you're in. Okay, so that Gamma skill can be a double-edged sword. You can literally down an enemy with it because your teammates can attack the person who's trapped in your vines with you, or you could capture somebody and then leave yourself wide open to the enemy team's attack. So that's why Ibra is going to stay at the bottom, because functionally she only has 2 skills working at a time, depending once again on what part of the map you're on, whereas these two always have their skills available to them. And last but not least, Isawa. Why do I have him down here at the bottom? I have him down here because he is dookie, garbage, dog water, booty cheeks, okay? There's not enough words to describe the way I feel about this man. I have played him for hours trying to get good as him, and it's like not even a skill issue thing. It's not a skill stealing thing. There is no amount of skill that's going to make you an insane Isawa. You can get better at Isawa, yes. You can do decent damage as him, yes. But when they buffed the Gamma skill, that is not what we were looking for. We were looking for the Alpha and the Beta skills to be changed, because the Alpha skill will just knock down opponents without doing any damage. The Beta skill will hit 2 parts of your kick. It's 5 kicks technically, so you'll hit 2 of your 5 kicks and then clip through the enemy, or just not do damage to them for the other 3 kicks, which makes no sense. The tracking's really weird on it, like I said, so you'll clip through them. It's just, there's so many things weird about his kit. Additionally, his ability to turn off quirks doesn't feel consistent. I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, some people say it's glitched. I would personally say it's not. It's bugged a little bit, but I have seen people saying it's not bugged. So just, I guess it depends. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think his special action is bugged? I think personally it's a little bit bugged, because I feel like I've stared directly at somebody 2 feet away from me for 5 seconds, and they were still using their quirk the whole entire time for whatever reason, and it didn't make any sense to me. So yeah, anyways guys, that is the tier list for this week, the last week before Endeavor comes out. I can't wait to place this boyo in the next tier list. So if you guys would like to see that, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button, and then hit that like button on this video as well. And if you guys enjoyed the video, or you have anything you would like to see changed on the next tier list, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.